All right, so here's the deal. It's February 13th, 2026, and the clock is literally ticking down. At midnight tonight, we're looking at a partial government shutdown. And the department at the very center of all of this? It's Homeland Security, one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, most controversial parts of the U.S. government. So, what does that actually mean for you? Well, when that midnight deadline hits, funding for the TSA, yep, the folks who screen you at the airport, it's gone. Funding for FEMA, the agency that shows up when there is a hurricane or a flood, that stops too. Even the Coast Guard gets left high and dry. We're talking about thousands of federal employees suddenly in limbo. But here's where it gets really interesting. The twist in all of this? The two agencies right at the heart of this whole political storm, ICE and Border Patrol, they're going to keep running without a single interruption. Turns out they were already given a ton of money in an earlier budget bill. So think about that. Crucial services are getting shut down, but the ones causing all the controversy, they're totally fine. It just makes you ask, right? What is actually happening inside the Department of Homeland Security? To figure that out, we've got to unpack the political fight that led us to this brink. Okay, so let's break down the standoff. The House? They already passed a bill to fund the DHS. Simple enough. But then it gets to the Senate, and the Democratic minority hits the brakes. They're using the filibuster to block the whole thing. Basically, they're saying, nope, not another penny until we see some serious reforms to how these federal agents are behaving. So what are these big reforms they're demanding? Honestly, when you look at the list, they seem pretty straightforward. They want agents to need a real warrant from a judge to enter a home, not just a piece of paper signed by their supervisor. They want agents' names and ID numbers clearly visible on their uniforms. They're calling for an end to racial profiling and for agents to stay away from sensitive places like schools and churches. Plus, they're pushing for humane standards in detention centers and basic stuff like body cameras for accountability. The Democrats are framing these as just common sense protections for our constitutional rights. But is the agency's leadership listening? It really doesn't seem like it. In fact, they seem to be digging in their heels. The acting director of ICE, a guy named Todd Lyons, recently told Congress, "We are only getting started." Kind of sends a message, right? He's basically saying this level of enforcement, it's just the warm-up act. And this is a perfect example of the huge gap between what officials are saying and what's actually happening on the ground. Just look at this fiasco in El Paso this week. All of a sudden, the FAA shuts down the entire airspace over the city. The official story, oh, it was cartel drones. Sounded serious, but that story fell apart, immediately. You want to know the truth? An agent with a military-grade laser mistook party balloons for a cartel drone and fired. Yeah, party balloons. So it wasn't just a mistake, it was a mistake that was immediately covered up with a lie. And that same disconnect, it shows up when we look at who ICE is actually arresting. The line they always give the public is that they're going after the worst of the worst, dangerous criminals. But here's the thing. Documents from DHS itself, their own data, tells a completely different story. It shows the overwhelming majority of people they arrest have no record of violent crime whatsoever. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're pretty stark. See that tiny sliver? That's just 2%. That's the share of people arrested who had convictions or charges for really serious stuff, like homicide or sexual assault. And that huge chunk, 84%, those are people with no violent crime record at all. The data and the public statements, they just don't match up. Not even close. And it's not just about stats, it's about individual cases. Take this one from just last month in Minneapolis. An ICE agent shoots a man. DHS puts out this really dramatic statement saying the agent was viciously attacked with a snow shovel and a broom handle and that he had to shoot to defend his life. It sounds like a movie scene, and the man who was shot gets charged with assault. But then, guess what happened just yesterday? The whole story fell apart. The Justice Department dropped all the charges. And the reason why is pretty shocking. They said that video of the incident was materially inconsistent with the agent's story. In other words, the video didn't back him up. So there it is again. The official narrative just crumbles the second it's confronted with cold, hard evidence. Okay, so these individual incidents are troubling, right? But let's zoom out, because there's something way bigger going on behind the scenes. While all this is happening, ICE has been quietly, but very aggressively, expanding its physical infrastructure all across the country. And when I say expanding, I mean the scale is just breathtaking. Get this, ICE is planning to spend over $38 billion. That's billion with a B. And what's it for? to buy up warehouses and turn them into this massive new network of processing and detention centers. We're not talking about small facilities. These are planned to be mega centers, some holding up to 10,000 people. So naturally, people are asking questions about what conditions are like inside these places. And the official response from DHS? Basically to dismiss it all. A spokesperson just came out and accused the media of peddling hoaxes about poor conditions. Okay, so they're calling it a hoax. But now let's contrast that with what Congressman Jamie Raskin saw. He did a surprise, unannounced visit to an ICE facility in Maryland, and what he described was just shocking. 60 men, he said, packed shoulder to shoulder in one room 24 hours a day with a single toilet, sleeping like sardines under aluminum foil blankets. That does not sound like a hoax. It's a completely different reality from the official story. So let's put the pieces together. You've got agents who seem unaccountable, a massive nationwide expansion, and a pattern of official stories that just don't hold up. So you have to ask, why? What's the end game here? Where is all of this going? Well, it looks like it's all building toward a much larger political goal, and it has everything to do with the 2026 midterm elections. Here's how. The administration is now pushing really hard for new election laws, and the reason they're giving? They're making the claim that Democrats only win elections because of massive, widespread illegal voting by undocumented immigrants. Now, it's important to note this claim has been debunked over and over again, but it's the justification they're using. And a key piece of technology in this whole effort is a system called SAVE. Now, SAVE stands for Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements. It was originally designed for a pretty boring bureaucratic purpose, to check if someone was eligible for public benefits. But now, 27 states are using this very same tool to scan their voter rolls, basically hunting for people they think might be non-citizens. And you can probably see where this is going. There is a huge problem. Reports have shown this system makes persistent mistakes. What that means is it frequently flags naturalized citizens, people who went through the whole process and are absolutely legal voters, as non-citizens. And once you're flagged, you're automatically referred to DHS for criminal investigation, and you have to somehow prove your own citizenship just to get your right to vote back. It's a nightmare for legitimate voters. All of this is funneling into a big piece of proposed legislation, the Save America Act. And it would do two main things. First, it would require every voter to show a passport or a birth certificate just to register. And second, it would force states to use that flawed SAVE system to purge their voter rolls every single month. And that brings us right back to today, to the shutdown and the ultimate flashpoint. Because this bill is stalled in the Senate, the president has basically said he's going to do it anyway. He posted on social media that there will be voter ID for the midterms, whether approved by Congress or not. So this isn't just a political squabble anymore. This is a direct challenge to the power of Congress. And it leaves us with a really unsettling question. What happens when the very department created to secure the homeland starts to look like a threat to the country's own laws and its entire democratic process?